Our first presenter this morning is Dr. Solomon Appiah from Valley View University in Ghana. His paper is titled Wounded Healers, a Theological Exploration of the Effectiveness of Healing Ministries Among Previously Traumatized Pastoral Caregivers. Join me in welcoming Dr. Appiah.
Hi, good morning. Wounded Healers, a theological exploration of the effectiveness of healing ministries among previously traumatized pastoral caregivers. One of the most difficult theological analogies of the ministry of Jesus the Christ is his portrayal as a suffering savior or suffering servant. That the sovereign creator and redeemer of the universe, having the antidote to every wound and challenging experience, and yet bearing an antidote to every challenging experience, and who had come to seek and to save, yet he is encompassed on every front by trauma, is perplexing. His experience of pain, rejection, betrayal, loss, and death validates his humanity. Yet, it appears that these very experiences also accentuate his claim as being the ultimate giver of rest, relief, and restoration, and remedy to those who experience similar human conditions. This portrayal of a sovereign savior perhaps most effectively fits the wounded healer concept, where caregivers have themselves experienced the realities of the receivers of the wounds, where caregivers have themselves experienced the realities of the receiver's pain and suffering, and thus are able to extend support for healing. In this case, the recipient, who both sees and hears about the predicament of his savior, so to speak, is assured that if one has been through it and emerged victorious, then they also could overcome their presenting trauma. There are several Christ events that point to the concept of the wounded healer. The invitation by Christ, "Come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and you will find rest for your souls," stands as the fulcrum of his care ministry. Since he himself has been tempted at every front, at every point, yet without sin, care receivers can come boldly and find the grace to help in their time of need. In pastoral care, the minister is not isolated from the experiences of his clients. The minister who gives care is able to evoke his own lived experiences, by means of his reflexivity to minister to his clients, thereby bequeathing that which he does have. Outside of this experience, trauma healing ministries remain inadequately informed, or at best, merely theoretical, failing to scratch where the care receivers itch the most. When people experience trauma, they are often led to explore the why question. Their quest to understand pain and suffering and how one may overcome same legitimizes the objective of situating trauma within a theological context. Since theology is a meaning-making enterprise, pastoral caregivers can construct a framework of healing by leveraging theological principles to help their clients to make meaning of the experiences that they go through. This kind of trauma healing framework is further legitimized if the caregiver relates his or her own experiences of vulnerability and how he or she overcame them. To the effect that a man cannot bequeath what he doesn't have, there is another account proverb that says, that's a can. And it means that a promise is as good as the one making it. A promise is as good as the one making it. The theological exploration of trauma is, however, inadequately explored, owing possibly to the fact that trauma studies has been done mostly by psychiatrists and psychologists and physicians until much recently. The theological exploration in this study draws parallels between three Christ events: Jesus' betrayal by Judas, his abandonment by his disciples, and then the abuse that he endured at the hands of his crucifiers. And that of three ministers who give pastoral care or trauma care in Ghana on issues relating to abandonment, betrayal, and abuse. In comparing these ministries, the study explores the theological foundations of the wounded healer concept and how they effectively help traumatized clients. Ultimately, the study aims to propose a faith therapy. Framework that will inform theological education and pastoral care practices. This will further enhance the effectiveness of care ministries and support systems within Ghanaian communities, Ghanaian Christian communities. And also offer insights into the effectiveness of trauma care that could help clients to cope with and eventually heal from their trauma. Now, the concept of the wounded healer from a historical and theological foundation. The front cover of Henry Nouwen's 1979 classic, The Wounded Healer, bears the profound inscription: In our own woundedness, we can become the source of life for others. We can become the source of life for others. For trauma healing ministries to be effective, caregivers must first identify their own sufferings as part of the broader construct of human woundedness and make that reality the starting point of their service to those they attempt to serve. This kind of vulnerability not only brings self-healing and healing for the clients, but also establishes a strong theological foundation for the care ministry. Care receivers who see their physicians healing themselves first can repose confidence, since their caregivers demonstrate a deep understanding of the sufferings that they are trying to help to alleviate. The term wounded healer has been variously examined. Notably, it finds its origin in the work of Carl Gustav Jung, who posited that clinicians and caregivers must be in touch with their own wounds in order to truly empathize with and heal others. Jung's formulation underscored that the act of healing is deeply interwoven with the healer's own experience of suffering. This idea was later extended to various pastoral and theological contexts, wherein ministry is seen as most effective when rooted in personal transformation through suffering. The wounded healer paradigm, though criticized for its potential risk of re-traumatization, caregiver burnout, and over-identification, provides theological legitimacy and practical effectiveness to trauma healing ministries when viewed as a critical lens for understanding the paradoxical relationship between suffering and healing. Jesus Christ, portrayed as the suffering servant in Isaiah chapter 53, embodies the archetype of the wounded healer par excellence. His betrayal, abandonment, and crucifixion not only validate his humanity, but also empower his ministry of healing and redemption. The ministry of Jesus is replete with examples where personal sufferings and vulnerability pave the way for a deeper connection with the human pain. His expression of traumatic experiences is not depicted as a weakness, but as a profound source of empathy and spiritual authority. The biblical narrative reveals that his suffering was integral to his ministry of delivering hope and restoration to the oppressed and the brokenhearted. This theological perspective posits that the very act of experiencing trauma perfectly prepares one for ministry roles that require deep empathy and understanding. Trauma, as understood in modern clinical practice, involves a psychological and emotional response to events that overwhelm an individual's capacity to cope. Traditionally, fields such as psychiatry and psychology and medicine have spearheaded the study of trauma, whereas the domain of theology and pastoral care has increasingly integrated trauma theory into its practices elsewhere. The Ghanaian context is generally or has generally been slow at such an incorporation. The adoption of trauma care holds enormous potentials for pastoral care services in Ghana's unique sociocultural context, where community shared experiences and spiritual resilience are interdependent. So what I did was to hold interviews with 3 pastors who give spiritual care. And quickly, let me tell you about this. The first person is Pastor Ebenezer Tokese. He's an ordained pastor of the Accra City Conference, who in 2018 lost 5 members of his family to a fire that gathered his home while he was away attending a camp meeting. These 5 persons included his wife, a 3-month-old son of his, and an 8-year-old daughter of his, including his mother-in-law, 65 years, and a 9-year-old daughter, niece of his wife, who had come along with the mother-in-law to take care of the newborn baby. The second is Josiah Bakpenaneso Ando, a biblical scholar specializing in Old Testament studies and interpretation, currently serving as a lecturer at Valley View University. He has relationship issues which led to his losing his ministerial potential. And then the third person is God's will T.K. Mensah, who was persecuted for the kind of messages he was preaching. And so he was robbed at gunpoint within 3 months consistently, which led to trauma. So I tried to examine how they use such traumatic experiences to offer help and support to people who are currently going through trauma. Because of my time, let me rush on to my conclusion and some recommendation. This study set out to explore the transformative power of the wounded healer concept as the foundation for trauma-informed pastoral care in Ghana by juxtaposing key Christ events such as Judas's betrayal, the abandonment by his disciples, and the abuse by his crucifiers, the lived experiences of 3 and as well as the lived experiences of 3 Ghanaian pastoral caregivers. The research reveals that personal trauma, when acknowledged and integrated within ministry, fosters authentic empathy and healing. So 3 things must be done. We need to integrate lived experiences and theology so we can formulate a proper care ministry. We need the wounded healer paradigm. We need to practice it with caution so that we do not over-identify and we do not also fall back into trauma. Then we need to contextualize the relevance of interdisciplinary study. So psychiatry, psychology, theology, and practical theology. We need to do all these in order that we are able to effectively serve as caregivers. In sum, the study not only validates the wounded healer concept as an effective tool for trauma care, but also marks a significant contribution to our understanding of the interplay between personal trauma, redemption, and ministry effectiveness. The study therefore serves as a beacon for hope for future research and the practical enhancement of trauma-informed pastoral care across diverse cultures and contexts. Thank you.